Hi, Ernesto. Hi, Michael. This is the question today. It says, where does this whole pandemic situation seem to be leading? Is it more of a pandemic or a plandemic? If something is not in your mind, it cannot be projected out. That is, if there is no fear of getting sick, why wear masks or take self-protection measures?
Firstly, what is a plandemic? This is a new word for me.
Did you not hear before?
No.
Plan, well, is all the people now. Yesterday, for example, in Berlin, no, too many people manifestation. The officialist versions say that are who is denying the truth, no. These people say that there is a plan, no, this is a objective of the supranational families.
So it's a conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy, yes. And we spoke in other meetings. Do you remember, Michael? Sure,
Yes.
no? Before, no, maybe 3 or 4 months, I don't know. About when you're going to cross a road and there are too many cars crossing.
Yes.
You are not stupid, no? You take your precauciones, como how is
precautions.
yes, precautions, and you don't cross the road.
Yes.
But in the other way, if you going, for example, no, for the city, no, you're going to make shops, to make some shop, to buy something, you put the mask because the police going to you and make you a sanction, no? But in the sense of these teachings, if in your mind, this is this is the topic, not to speak about, no? If in your mind there is not fear about this, and it's impossible that it appear in your experience, no? If you are absolutely in peace and there is not any fear in the inconscience, no?
Yes.
Or in the conscience, no?
Yes.
All that, of course, is the result of the prarabdha, and the prarabdha represent the state of your mind.
Yes.
And what's your opinion about it, Michael?
Well, it's not just because of fear, but we wear masks. We wear masks because it reduces the chance of infection. In fact, by wearing a mask, we are not really protecting ourselves, or we're protecting ourselves to a minimal extent. We are doing more to protect others. Because if we happen to have that coronavirus and we're wearing a mask, we're less likely to pass it on to others. So this is a sensible precaution, and it's something that we are doing not only for ourselves, we're doing it for the benefit of others.
Because
if
other people
thinks, I don't
think that they can be ill, no?
Sorry?
Because some people, when see you without mask, think that they can be ill, no?
Yeah, well, no. If supposing you have caught the coronavirus without your knowing it, and you're not wearing a mask, and when you're breathing out the viruses. And if you're in a shop in this close proximity to people, other people may be getting the virus. So, I mean, none of these, we all know wearing a mask is not a perfect precaution. Keeping 2 meters distance is not there's no perfect precaution. If it's our destiny, we're going to get it anyway. But the chances of spreading it are reduced by taking these precautions, such as wearing masks when you're in a confined space, keeping a distance from other people. These all help to reduce the spread of the disease.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this is just this. These people who talk about plandemic, I don't know what they believe. I think there are some people who believe that the whole thing is a hoax. But why would there be a hoax? And how come so many people are dying? I mean, most of us have heard of someone who's even if we don't know anyone who has died of coronavirus, we know people who've had it, and we know people who've had relatives who have died of it. So it's not just a hoax. There is a thing. There is this virus, and it is though many people who catch it are have only relatively mild symptoms. There are some people who have extremely severe symptoms, but I mean, many people die, and many other people have permanent organ damage. So it's something that should be taken seriously. We shouldn't just. I mean, there will always be conspiracy theorists who come up with their own wonderful ideas, and there'll always be people to believe them. But I think we have to be realistic about this. This virus is there. We don't know. The question began, where did this whole pandemic situation seem to be leading? God alone knows where it's leading. Because, I mean, now the doctors and scientists know more about the disease. They've got better idea how to treat it and everything. But until either a cure or a vaccine is produced, and even if a vaccine is produced, there's no knowing yet how long it will give immunity, whether they'll be able to get a vaccine which will give a permanent immunity, or whether it will just give immunity for a few months. It may give immunity to young people, but not to old people. So there's so many things that are still not known.
And
So
usually the people that believe in these conspiranoic these versions, when having a familiar, a friend or a daughter ill with the coronavirus, change their opinions very quickly. No?
Yeah. Well, I mean, those who have less strong belief in conspiracy theories will change their views if someone near and dear to them becomes sick, or if they become sick. But there are people who love conspiracy theories so much, if they become sick, they'll think, the government have done this. They've created some virus to make me sick, just to prove me, because I'm believing in it, just to prove that my conspiracy theories are wrong. So but they'll still believe in conspiracy theories. So there are people who like to believe such things, let them believe such things. But such beliefs are potentially dangerous, because if people believe in these conspiracy theories and therefore don't take precautions, they may be infecting other people. So I think we have to be sensible about these things. We take reasonable precautions. We don't have to live in fear. I mean, if it's our destiny, but we're going to catch it, we will catch it. If it's our destiny, but we're going to get severe symptoms, we'll get severe symptoms.
It's not a question of fear; it's of sense, no? Sense.
Yeah, common sense.
That is the more real of the sense.
Yeah. And all this has nothing to do with spirituality. Spirituality is not about turning our attention outwards, turning our attention inwards. Outwardly, if we're following a spiritual path, we should outwardly behave in an appropriate manner according to the circumstances.
Yes.
This seems to be like it's part of the shared prarabdha, right? I mean, this situation, the COVID.
You can say so. If there are many egos, then the
there are many egos, exactly.
But according to Bhagavan, who is the one who is seeing all this? The one who is seeing all this is the one ego. And it's for that one ego that there is prarabdha. So whatever that one ego experiences, that is prarabdha.
Yeah, an apparent shared prarabdha.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you seem to be. There are people who are extremely anxious about the disease, of getting the disease, and they are, say, someone they tell off the people on the street, and some others are like they don't have, don't feel any danger at all, and they don't wear masks.
Those people who are, I mean, it's not right to be, I mean, it's not wise to be paranoid about these things, but at the same time, a certain healthy fear of danger is sensible. If we are, so long as we're living in this world, there are so many forms of danger. This coronavirus is just one of the many dangers. As you were saying earlier, Ernesto, we know crossing a road, a road with a lot of traffic is potentially dangerous. So we take precautions. We wait till there's a gap, sufficient gap between the cars. We don't just rush out in a small gap and with the likelihood of being hit by a car. We take reasonable precautions. There's so many things we take precautions about.
Yeah.
So these are all just normal. So long as we live in this world with a body, so long as our attention is going out with all this seems to be real, so we take sensible precautions.
And Michael, and for example, no, one person can say, well, if all that occurs is our prarabdha, no?
Yes.
And you think that you are sure that there is no fear in you, no more desire to feel ill or similar, and that includes that they are not appear in your experience people who feel fear about that you are not with mask, no,
Yes.
for example. But this human sense that we are speaking about, I think, no, I don't know what's your opinion, that you can't say never that you are really absolutely sure that suddenly a new fear, very hidden, appears in the form of one people that appears in your life and see you without mask and have contact with you and begin to have ill, no?
Yeah. And none of us, so long as we rise as ego, none of us are free of desire, and therefore none of us are free of fear. We all have, I mean, we to the extent to which our Vishaya vasanas are weakened, our desires will lose their strength. And to the extent desires lose their strength, fears will also lose their strength. But they're all still there potentially within us. And even in the state of extreme purity that Bhagavan was obviously in before he got that intense fear of death, though his desires and fears were would have been very, very slight, all that fear came up as in a very intense form. So Bhagavan obviously wasn't paranoid about death. But why that sudden intense fear of death? Because that was the trigger, the final trigger that turned his mind within and enabled him to go within. So anyone who thinks that they're beyond desire or beyond fear, they are deluding themselves. We all, so long as we rise as ego, in sleep we have no desire and no fear, true, because there's no ego. When the ego rises, the potential for desire and fear will always be there.
This is the laws of this dream.
Yeah. Like sometimes in our life, what one desire, but is strong for most people, is sexual desire. But there may be certain times in our life when that completely goes into the background. For example, in my case, most of the time I was in Tiruvannamalai, somehow I wasn't thinking about these things at all. I mean, I wasn't thinking I'd conquered lust or anything, but my mind wasn't dwelling on these things at all. That must have been the act of grace, but at a certain time, suddenly these things came up very strongly. All these thoughts and desires came up very, very strongly. So we would be deluding ourselves if we ever think that we have conquered desire or conquered fear. Until we conquer ego, and when we conquer ego, there'll be no one left to conquer desire or fear. I mean, there's only just pure awareness, so there's no question of any desire or fear, or conquering desire or fear. So the root of all desire and fear is ego. So long as ego remains, desire and fear are potentially there. They may not be currently manifest, but they're still potentially there.
Mm.
Because what are the seeds of desire and fear is the Vishaya Vasanas. And so long as there's ego, there will be Vishaya Vasanas. So if we want to, we need to reduce the strength of our Vishaya Vasanas to a considerable extent in order to eradicate ego. But once we eradicate, only when we eradicate ego do we completely eradicate all Vishaya Vasanas. And therefore desire and fear and attachment and so on. So this, as far as this pandemic is concerned, this is part of our prarabdha. We live in a time where there is this pandemic. In past ages, there have been far, far more severe, like 100 years ago, there was the so-called Spanish flu, which wasn't Spanish at all, but it happens to be called the Spanish flu for various historical reasons. But that Spanish flu was, well, we don't know how dangerous this coronavirus, it could mutate and become, there could be a second wave, which could be far more severe than the first wave. But the Spanish flu, I think there were 3 waves, and the second wave was the worst. But the Spanish flu, in India alone, they estimate between 12 and 17 million people were killed. I mean, it was a considerable proportion of the world population was killed by it. Far, far more than has so far been killed by this coronavirus. And throughout history, there have been plagues and there have been different diseases. During the Black Death in Europe, I think something like 2/3 of the population of Europe died during the Black Death. So these things happen. But this is all according to prarabdha. We happen to be living in this time where this pandemic is present. What do? We take we take reasonable precautions to safeguard ourselves and to safeguard others and our family and all the strangers we meet in the sea. We take the reasonable precautions. We try to keep the 2-meter distance. We wear a mask. We wash our hands. All these things. These are not. There's no big deal about these things. These are very, very ordinary things. There's simple precautions we can all take. Yeah. Beyond that, we shouldn't give much thought to these things. This pandemic has come. It's not going to, sooner or later it'll go. There'll be some solution, or the virus itself will mutate and cease to be virulent, or will get immunity to it. Or even if it becomes endemic, like in the past, smallpox was endemic. Sometimes viruses just remain endemic for hundreds of years. But fortunately for smallpox, we were able to develop a vaccine. Probably for this, sooner or later, a vaccine will be developed. But whatever is to happen is going to happen. So we need not worry about these things. We just take reasonable precautions and we go about what is our main concern? Our main concern should be turning our attention within and investigating ourselves. Mm-hmm. Yeah, when we allow our attention to come outwards, we have to behave in this world in an appropriate manner. Mm-hmm. And in present circumstances, that includes wearing a mask, washing our hands, all these simple precautions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, is it like history repeats itself every time?
It does.
It's like the people lose the credibility on the government. The government tries to solve up the situation. The people don't believe the government, so it's a conspiracy, and that's the same thing over and over. Yeah. So the same movie again in a different way.
This world is never a perfect place. Why? Because the world is a mental projection, and the mind is never perfect.
Yeah, that's the message we have from the pandemic.
Bhagavan says what we need to understand is what needs to be rectified is our own mind, our own chittam. Mm-hmm. I mean, chittam means all our vishaya vasanas. That's what all our vasanas. That's what we need to rectify. Mm-hmm. We can't rectify the world. We can't rectify other people. We can rectify ourselves. That should be our only concern.